Hello. Hello.
Ah,
Yes, ma'am.
Anji,
You are
Anji.
live. Yes, ma'am. You are live. You can start the session.
Okay, thank you. So, good everybody. Today I will be talking about basic ultrasound understanding of the lung in the pediatric critical care. So, I think the most important question which comes to our mind is that do we really need ultrasound? In fact, it says that point of care ultrasonography has is important. It helps us important decisions which are made in critically ill children are rather fast. You can assess the children for their changing scenarios. At one point the kid may look stable, but a few minutes or few hours the child may be looking bad. But you can't keep on doing your chest X-ray, or you sometimes the children are so sick that you cannot shift for CT scan. So in that way, ultrasound is quite helping us to make our decisions. Now let's just see a few cases and such and let's see whether it is really helpful or not. So this is a 3.5-month-old female child. She had some fever, mild cough, cold, irritability, fast breathing, refusal to feed. Then the child you start resuscitating this child that we are treating a shock. We know that we will treat the shock. So should we give fluid boluses, or are we your ultrasound might be how the function of the ventricle or the heart is. Now let's take one more case. This is an 11-year-old child presented with fever, hydrate for last 2 days, 4 days, was coughing for last 3 days, some pain in the left flank. Looking at the age of the child, looking at the hemodynamics, child was resuscitated with fluid boluses. Child's heart rate came down to 130, blood pressures were a little better. Child was shifted to PICU, and there the child again, within few hours, the sister found that the child was again looking quite bad with saturations of 85%. Now here again, we are talking about the use of ultrasound. Okay, the use of ultrasound does not mean that you are not going to intervene. Of course, you will continue to intervene. But shall we repeat the chest X-ray for this child? Or is there any possibility now the X-ray? I'm sure, I don't know about your units, but in my unit, ordering a chest X-ray takes at least half an hour or so. So if you have ultrasound, you can see that probably the child's lungs has flooded because you have given a lot of fluid in the emergency department. So yes, ultrasound can help you. Okay, going forward. So today I will be basically concentrating on two major organs. One is the heart, the other is a lung. In the heart, I would like to talk about how to assess for the volumes, and second is how to assess for the functions. For lung, I would be talking about pneumonia, if you can see pneumonias in ultrasound, if you can diagnose pneumothorax, which is an emergency in ultrasound, or if you can say whether your lungs are wet or dry after resuscitation. So while I trained myself in ultrasound. I went through a lot of literature and I came across a lot of these nomenclatures. But these nomenclatures are quite confusing and overwhelming. So what I prefer is that one should learn the utility of ultrasound rather than trapping yourself in this nomenclature. So today I will not be talking about any of these nomenclatures. Okay. Now, from the surviving sepsis guideline, from PALS, from ACCM, we all know that for shock, they have always said that you assess the child early, you start oxygen, place IV cannula, and then started giving fluids. So once you started giving fluids, Then what happens once you started giving fluids? What happens? You know, the first thing which is taught to you is that you keep assessing your child. How do you assess? We have been told that you assess for RALS, respiratory distress, and hepatomegaly. This holds true even today in all resource limited centers. But don't you think that these tools have been, you know, quite old, centuries old, and still we are relying on these tools? But there were some people who figured out that there can be, you know, some other modality which can help you to diagnose to diagnose the changing condition, to assess these patients better. Now, before I go in depth talking about ultrasound, the very two important thing which I always say is that you should know your probe. Probe is the most important, delicate, fragile part of the whole machine. So you have a linear probe which has a which has a high resolution, but it does not penetrate deeper. So deeper structures are not visualized properly. So where do you use this probe? Whenever you are looking for pneumothorax. So lung, for lung you use linear probes, or when you are putting a line, then you use linear probes. Now talking about these phased array probe, this probe, this probe's resolution is not great, but it really penetrates deeper. So these probe is used whenever you are looking for your cardiac images. Now coming back to the case, now this shock patient, you know, you started looking for your volume assessment. The best way to assess your volume is your in IVC, inferior vena cava. So how do you do that? So IVC actually is a very good marker of preload. It estimates CVP quite nicely. So whenever you have a patient in shock, if you are going to put your phase array probe in a subxiphoid area where the pointer is the, you know, the probe marker basically is towards your head, and at a 12 o'clock position, then you can see this IVC here, and you can decide, depending upon the collapsibility, whether this child will be benefited by the volume, especially only in patients who are in shock. I'm not talking about a normal patient. See, I may have a IVC which may be collapsing more than 50%. That does not mean you're going to resuscitate me with fluids. So basically, if you have a child in shock and if your IVC collapsibility is more than 50%, then you may come to this conclusion that your patient may be benefited with fluids. Or on the other hand, if your IVC is dilated, so this is collapsing IVC. If your IVC is dilated, that is, there is no collapsibility. That means that either your child has a heart failure, if you're not resuscitated this child with fluids, and probably this child has a heart failure, or this child has a tamponade, or pulmonary embolism. So just looking at your IVC, you can decide whether your patient will be benefited with fluid or not. Now, once you have seen your IVC, you move next to assess the heart function. Now, for assessing the heart function, basically you have two windows. One is the peristernal long axis. Here, what you are doing, you're using the same probe, but you are putting it on the lateral left of the sternum. Okay, lateral left of the sternum, and the probe marker is pointing towards the left hip. What you see as an image is, you see just below the probe, you will see your right ventricle. This right ventricle is very important. You can here only assess how your right ventricle is. So this should be half the size of your left ventricle. If it is so, that means your right ventricle is good. Just below the right ventricle, you will find your left ventricle, and then just in continuity with it is the left atrium. Now, sorry, but somehow I am not able to play my videos today. So I'm sorry. So what's happening here is that this, here I'll tell you. So by looking at your left ventricle, if the walls of the left ventricle are touching each other, then that is a good contractility. Another sign is when your mitral valve leaflet, this leaflet touches the septum, it is moving so nicely that it touches the septum. That means your heart is functioning well. So if I'll get time, I will show you videos at the end. Now, this is a subxiphoid view. This is my favorite view. You know, what happens is that once you have put your probe in the subxiphoid area, as you were assessing your IVC with your marker at the 12 o'clock position, if you're going to just tilt your probe so that the pointer now points towards the right. So just by rotating it anti-clockwise, you're going to get a 4-chamber view. And this is going to help you again look for your left ventricular function. Also pericardial effusion over here. Moving from here, a very important question which comes to my mind is that, are we justified as a non-cardiologist to assess our patients by ultrasound? Are we validated? Yes. When I was looking at the literature, I dig up this very good article which summarizes that ultrasound in pediatrics is very useful. So we just need some practice to look just for IVC collapsibility and the heart function. By just looking at these two things, then you can very well manage your patients well. The other very important use of ultrasound is you can look at the cardiac activity when you are performing CPR, because it has been seen that in CPR, while you are performing CPR, sometimes you may not be able to see the pulse, but if you look at the heart which is contracting, you should continue your CPR. This is another paper which says that the shock management under the guidance of ultrasound has decreased the mortality and has decreased the PICU stay from 8 versus 14 days. Now I'm moving from here to lung ultrasound. Now talking about lung ultrasound, for lung ultrasound, we are supposed to use the linear probe. Now, lung ultrasound, it is said that if our emergency physicians are, trained to look at the lung, then it helps in diagnosing pneumonias, pneumothorax, pleural effusions, even better than chest X-ray. The number of chest X-ray had gone down to 40% in one of the study. And it is not only that, but it is also seen that the novice and the experts have the same subjectivity in diagnosing these conditions. So taking from here, when you are looking at your lungs, then what all zones you should be looking at? The important thing which Dr. Ankit would agree with me is that the diaphragm of the children is quite high. It is almost touching the nipple level. So you don't have much area to look at when you're doing a lung ultrasound. So what you do, there are basically two zones on the anterior aspect. So where do you start? You put your probe anteriorly in the mid-clavicular line on the second intercostal space, goes towards the nipple line. That's how is your zone 1 seen. And then you move your probe laterally to the mid-axillary line. And there you are able to see the other second zone of the lung. Then for the third zone, you just place it laterally to the scapula and move it up and down. That's how, just looking at 3 zones, you will be able to see most of the lung. Now, in the lungs, the first thing which you see is a line. Now here, just hear me carefully. We all know that lung is filled with air. And believe me, ultrasound waves do not like air. Now here, what happens is then when the ultrasound wave comes, they are bounced off as they touches the pleura. So what we see here is a pleural line. Now what happens to the other waves? The other waves which are penetrated inside, they got scattered, and they got so much scattered that they do not return to the probe. So what you see here is are the A lines. So what A lines are? A lines are basically artifacts. Now how these artifacts are produced? When no sounds are going back. Basically what is happening, whatever is being bounced back by the pleura, it again comes back from the ultrasound probe, and these repeated bouncing back of pleural wave from the pleural line is responsible of creating these artifacts which are equidistant, horizontal equidistant reverberations, artifacts. So what you are seeing is the constant one pleural line, then the other artifact of a pleural line, then the other artifact. But this is basically seen when your whole lung is filled with air. So A lines in a way are seen in normal lungs. Am I clear? I will be showing you a video at the end of this session if the time allows. Okay, from here, this is a normal lung. Clear? Now from here, we are moving to the abnormal lung. Now let us see what are B lines. Now again, here we are saying that the lung units are filled with some fluid. Fluid is quite, dear to the ultrasound waves. So what happens here? When these waves come and touches the pleural line, it bounces back. But some of them, when goes inside, they are transferred back to the probe, although some scattering do happen, but some of them are transferred back to the probe, and that creates these B lines. So how does these B lines look like? They look like a flashlight, right from the emitting from the top, like, the white increasing from the top to the end of the image of the ultrasound. That is how you see the B lines. So any number of lines. So basically B lines means that there is some fluid. It is not, sometimes these similar lines can be seen in pneumonias also. But if you have bilateral B lines in all the lung fields, then that is basically a interstitial, excuse me, just a minute. So that is, just a minute, please, excuse me. Video. Just a minute. Okay. Talking about the B line, so I'm really sorry for the interruption. So there were some issues with the network. So talking about B lines, okay, so whenever you have more than 3 B lines in the lung field, then that means that the child has interstitial edema, and it is probably a case of pulmonary edema. Okay. So if you look at here, then this is a case of pulmonary edema, and this again here you are seeing the B lines, but it is a case of pneumonia. So we will see that how does it differ. If you will look here, then it says that if you have more than 3 lines seen in a lung field, then that shows that there is a fluid. However, if you are seeing these B lines in a focal area, then it is most likely you are dealing with a pneumonia as compared to the interstitial edema. Now coming to another entity, another very important entity is a pneumothorax. Dr. Ankit, can you ask them to switch on the videos, please? The technical team has stopped my video.
Yes, ma'am. Your internet connection is slow. That's why your video I have stopped it, because when your video is on, your voice is also stuck at sometimes. So that's why.
Okay, so now talking about pneumothorax. Pneumothorax, you should now understand that whatever A lines we have seen, that was because of the fact that there's a lot of air in the lungs, and air is a bed conductor of ultrasound waves. So here, whenever you are having a pneumothorax, you will still be able to see the A lines, but there will be no sliding of the pleura. So what happens is that these pleural line, they have a parietal and the visceral pleura which keeps on sliding, and once you are not able to see this sliding, then this depicts a pneumothorax. So in this case, again, you see here there is no lung sliding, and here the lung is sliding. I'm sorry, I can show you a video later on. The other way is that if you put a M mode, then M mode through normal lungs gives the appearance of the sandy beach and the waves on the horizon due to different conducting properties. However, in the pneumothorax, you would see a barcode. So this is more clear. So if you are going to place your M mode here, what you see is a sky, ocean, and this granular appearance beach. That means there is no pneumothorax. However, what you see when you have a pneumothorax is there is air, there's sky, ocean, and there's no beach. In fact, this is a stratosphere. This is called as stratosphere. So for pneumothorax, you may have a A lines, then you will have no lung sliding, and you will have this barcode appearance on the M mode. The other important point is lung point. Like you may have a pneumothorax in a particular pocket. So what you will see, a lung sliding in one part and no lung sliding in the other part. That is a very important point to say that patient has a pneumothorax. Now just talking about another entity is pneumonia. So what now pneumonia, as we were talking about in pneumonia, what is happening? Almost there is a complete consolidation of the lungs. So when there is a complete consolidation of the alveolar units, the ultrasound waves passes from pleural to the fluid and they bounces back very dearly back to the probe. So once this happens, you get a very good image, and the image is somewhat similar to the liver. So if you're going to put your probe on the on the mid axillary line down towards fourth or fifth intercostal space, you will see this window. Here, if you will see this window, you will appreciate that the consistency of the liver will be similar to the consistency of the lung. The here important is that you have to identify the diaphragm. Once you identify the diaphragm, then you can say that this is called as lung hepatization. There's one more sign which is called as Shred sign. So basically, as we were talking about shock, so by looking at your IVCs, by looking at the heart function, and by looking at your B lines, you will be able to say whether you have your lungs wet or dry. The other very important thing which I have seen is that once you are resuscitating a patient, you keep looking for your B lines. I have seen patients when we were resuscitating that the child had A lines, and when we kept on resuscitating such kids, these B lines produced. So what are the other areas where we can use a bedside ultrasound? So the other areas where the ultrasound can be used is, we all know it has now become a standard of care to put the central venous lines with the help of ultrasound. I won't be going in details about this. The other utility of bedside ultrasound is abdominal ultrasound. Very important. So whenever the trauma patient lands in the casualty, the first thing is which is ordered as a part of routine care is to do a FAST. That is a focused assessment with sonography in trauma. So what they do is they basically look for the fluid in the peritoneal cavity, fluid in the pericardial cavity. So E-FAST is when you are looking at the fluid in the lungs also, and you're also looking for pneumothorax. So this is extended FAST. There are various studies which have shown that this extended FAST has decreased the number of CTs in kids, especially where you have a history of blunt trauma. However, even if you are not, even if you're going for a CT scan, but while you are resuscitating a child, at least, you can do this scan and you can be sure that you're not missing on to anything. There are neuro ultrasound, other utilities are, optic nerve. By looking at the optic nerve, one can, very well see for ICP, airway management, diaphragmatic function, especially in a critically ill patient. This is very much used in a cardiac patient, post-op cardiac patients. So I would like to say that there are top 10 reasons for us to use ultrasound. Once it is safer, less radiation, especially while we are putting our central lines. It's better than X-ray for pneumonia and pneumothorax. It improves in managing shock, and it is very important while you are resuscitating a child or while you are doing a CPR. You can help, you can diagnose pleural effusions, you can do thoracocentesis. It can save patients from radiation and improves, it reduces cost and it's good to use ultrasound. It's something which is handful. Now, if I have time, then can I share some videos? Can't hear you.
Please share your videos, ma'am.
Okay. So this is a video which is showing you A lines. So here I wanted you to appreciate the lung sliding. This is very important.
Can't see the video, ma'am.
You can't see the video.
We are still seeing your slides.
Okay, okay, 1 minute. 1 minute, 1 minute. I'll do it. I'll do it. Now, can you see?
Yes, yes, we can see the video now.
Okay, so this is very important slide, important video where you can appreciate the lung sliding. Plural. This is basically musculoskeletal part. I'll just play it again. And this is the lung sliding. Lung sliding. Why do you see this lung sliding? You see this lung slide because the visceral and the parietal pleura are sliding over each other. When you have pneumothorax or pleural effusion, then this lung sliding will not be appreciated. So that's the reason that is a very important sign of pneumothorax, that there is an absence of lung slide. I'll share one more video. Zoom meeting cancel होगी क्या? Can you see? These are the B lines. So this is how the B lines come. B lines look like. This is the lung sliding, and these were the B lines. Okay, I'm sharing one more videos, two more just. Probe position should be, used. You are using a linear probe in a second, third intercostal space. And if you will I'll just go forward. Now just appreciate what you can appreciate. So this is a lung which is sliding. This is a lung which is not sliding, right? These are ribs. So can you see? Okay. So this is a sliding pleura basically. The pleura is sliding over here very well. So this is a seashore appearance. So you have, and this is a seashore appearance, which you'll see in a normal lung. Now look at the stratosphere appearance. It's highly. So absence and sliding sign and stratosphere is definitely you are dealing with a pneumothorax. This is a seashore and this is a stratosphere.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sarah Nick Ravan. I'm a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist and intensivist, and I'm talking to you today with kidney below it. What's very peculiar or interesting about this ultrasound image?
So if you will look here, this is your, liver, and this is your pleural fluid. This is a right pleural fusion. See, you can appreciate. Last is, I'll show you one more consolidation. Here it is very difficult to say that. You can see some B lines, very difficult, some bronchograms. The lung looks like as if though it has been. Look here, this shimmering, this is your Schratt sign. I think actually showing these videos is helpful, but until or unless you see these videos and do it yourself, till then it's difficult to appreciate these things. So take the probe, keep doing it in your patients, and I think that's the best way to learn ultrasound. I would